Now, it's going to cost a lot of generations, a lot of their time and expertise to give back Mother Earth. Are we going to succeed? Are we going to succeed? There's a lot of minds we have to change within everybody's lifetime so that our grandchildren can enjoy this earth as much as we have.
This is really a promotional film that the tribe hired us to do. It's not really a documentary film about how it happened. So a lot of skepticism about whether solar energy, it's Alaska. Everybody's told them solar energy won't work. And so part of this is to document and to make that data available to other communities who might want to use renewable energy. Other questions?
In terms of expenses, what do you guys have to go through, especially when you come to the solar panel system?
Yeah, the entire project cost about $125,000, and it's a demonstration project. So we were doing all kinds of things that you wouldn't normally do if you were just installing the panels. Since then, we've helped the tribe to put together a grant application for $2 million to do this on a wide scale in the village.
So this is the whole entire village, not just...
We just did one house as a demonstration project. Now they want to do the whole village.
So that $125,000 was just for that house?
Was for the, well, no, that was like the wind generator we put at the high school, and the solar, electric, solar hot water, the weatherization, rewrapping the house in insulation and all that. The solar panels themselves, that part of the project was about $12,000, $15,000. Wind generator was about $8,000. Solar hot water was about $6,000. Getting it all up there. You can't drive to rural Southeast Alaska. And I'll tell you a little bit more about this community and this project. Unless anybody has any question, I'll tell you a little bit more. Like I said, this is a remote community. It's a 6-hour ferry ride or a 1-hour seaplane ride from any place. You can't drive to it. As I said before, the Tlingit and Haida, two different tribes. Tlingit is this village. They've lived there for at least 5,000 years. Some people say as much as 10,000 years. It's a very rich and productive ecosystem, and they were able to meet all their needs for food and shelter and housing and whatever else they wanted in 3 or 4 or 5 months a year. The rest of the time they just hung out with their friends and created a very complex culture around craft and various different rituals and customs that they developed. But it's only been 2 or 3 generations since they've lived traditional lifestyles. So it's just in the last, they're the older people there, their grandparents were people living traditional lifestyles here. And in those 2 generations, they've become completely dependent on fossil fuels and junk food and everything else. They still do a lot of subsistence harvesting of fish and plants and various different things for food and for their culture. But they've become pretty much completely dependent on everything that comes on the ferry or barge or airplane. Their electricity is completely run with diesel generators. The diesel generators run 24 hours a day. It's a small community, about 500 people, about 150 homes. So it's actually pretty easy to change it all over. the fantastic thing, which, this kind of this two-edged sword, electricity costs 60 cents a kilowatt hour in that village. So here, electricity costs 10, 12 cents a kilowatt hour, so it's like 6 times what it is here. People there, as you saw in the film, they pay $600 to $1,200 a month in energy bills, and they make $5,000 to $20,000 a year, 70% unemployment. Obviously, they're subsidized quite a lot to be able to live there. There's a big push, to move them off the island and say, hey, why are we paying all this money for these people to stay here? Their culture, their tradition is rooted in that place, and their biggest fear of the elders is that they're going to fly over that island someday and point down and say, that's where our ancestors used to live. We can no longer live there anymore. So, energy is a huge deal. Some of the things that happen when you have energy costs that are that high in relation to your income, they weren't able to pay the bill to heat the municipal building. The fire truck froze up, and then several people died because they couldn't fight a fire. They couldn't afford to pay the electricity on the water company, so for 6 months there wasn't any pressurized water in the community. So just think about us. If energy costs were that, maybe 20, 30 years down the road if we don't do something different. And everybody told them that solar, these weren't an option. What happened is a team from the tribe came to visit Fairfield, and I did a project there called Abundance Eco Village, which is an off-grid subdivision for about 15 homes now, eventually be 30 homes, all completely solar powered, wind powered. Water comes from rainwater catchment, various other things. I don't want to get into that project now, but they saw that. I haven't paid an electric bill in about 20 years. I live with just solar and wind power. And they saw that and they said, gee, could we do this in Alaska? I don't know. So they started bringing me up as a consultant over a couple of years to educate communities about energy efficiency and about these various things. Talk about changing out a light bulb. The new style LED light bulbs, they use 1/10 the energy of a conventional light bulb. One of those light bulbs is worth $1,000 in that community over the life of the bulb. So they just change out one light bulb, it's like giving them $1,000 bill. So efficiency is really important, so I started going up and educating about efficiency and working with developed a relationship with there's about 10 or 15 remote communities in Southeast Alaska, Native communities. They have a central organizing group called the Central Council of Tlingit and Haida. They have an economic development office, and that's the people who sponsored us to come up. And we put together a grant and do this demonstration project to see, hey, is solar going to work? And the thing that really blew me away about this project is, there was so much controversy about whether this was going to work, and utility was not on board, and the housing authority wasn't on board in the meeting. But what this project did is it gathered all those people together and gave them an excuse to work together. And the first day we turned the system on, and the meter spun backwards. And then the next day, when the solar electric, the next day when they went out and looked at the meter, and it was less than it was when it started the day before, so we had produced more energy than they needed, not just for the day, but also for the night. So we produced more energy than they needed that day. They have a CB radio network that everybody has in their house. Everybody knew about it in the whole town in like 2 minutes. And we were working on the wind generator at the time, getting the wind generator up. The mayor came over and grabbed me and he said, "Where did you get this grant? We need to do the whole village. How can we do this?" And it was just this complete change in the community based on the success of this, this project, and then seeing, being told forever that this doesn't work, and it worked. And so it was really powerful. It was a really powerful experience for the students to go up there and be involved in that and be immersed in that community. A typical home in Iowa uses 900 to 1,000 kilowatt hours a year. The homes in the Eco Village project I did use 100 kilowatt hours a year. So for what you could power one standard home on, we could power 10 of the Eco Village homes. And their showers are hot and their beers are cold. I mean, they get the same services from energy everybody else does. They just do it a little smarter. But there's about 1,300 kilowatt hours in Iowa that you get from 1 kilowatt of solar. And so we're going to have 1,000 kilowatts of solar if this project goes to completion. 1,000 kilowatts. So we'll have, we'll have, 1,000 kilowatts is a megawatt. So we'll have 1,300 times 1,000, we'll have 1,300,000 kilowatt hours. Is that right? 1,300 for 1 kilowatt. We got 1,000 kilowatts, so we got 1,000. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So if each house was 1,000, well, if each house was 1,000 kilowatt hours a month, 10,000 kilowatt hours, let's say a year. It's about 900 a month. So let's say it's 10,000 a year. Makes the numbers easier. So what is that? 130? 130 homes, something like that. But this will be put in increments of 20 kilowatts because that maximizes the incentives that are available this year. And a 20 kilowatt solar array is about 20 feet wide and about 80 feet long. So it's big. And there's 50 of those in Fairfield. So it'll change the character of Fairfield. We have a solar-powered radio station in Fairfield. We already have about, well, probably 50 solar-powered homes. We did a project, I put together a project in the early 90s where we bought a bunch of used solar panels from a place that was going out of business. And we got them for $1 a watt. We bought 1,000 of these panels. And back then, solar panels were $10 a watt. So we got like really cheap solar for like the first 30 homes. Yeah.
Just follow up. To finish that project, what will be the approximate cost?
Okay, solar right now, the rolled in, it'll be about $5 million, the total project cost. But there's this year, about 85% of that is covered by incentives. So people can put, the reason why this is such a, these guys are really busting their butt to try to make this project happen is because a business can put in a $110,000 solar electric system, which is about what a 20 kilowatt system costs, $6 a watt, let's say. Their net out-of-pocket cost after they get all the incentives back, takes about a year to get the incentives back, is only about $12,000. The problem right now is that there's only a few places in the country that have the incentives and have the public policy in place to support a solar industry. Iowa's not really one of them, except for this weird little thing that's happening until the end of the year. There's not a huge future right now in the installation. So there's about 4 or 5 guys in Iowa who make their living putting in solar panels, and that's about it. You go to Wisconsin, there's probably 500. And all the guys in Iowa, they're an electrician who does other things, or they're a plumber who does other things. In Wisconsin, you got guys who got trucks that just say solar on them. That's all they do all day long. And so the difference is the public policy between Wisconsin and Iowa. The big places right now are Colorado. In 5 years, they've created, in 3 years, they've created 5,000 jobs installing solar panels. Just took a group of students out to Boulder, and there's just solar panels on everything out in Boulder. Little companies that 5 years ago had 1 employee now have 25 or 30, and they're all making really good money because of the public policy there. In California, Colorado, and New Jersey are the kind of leaders. So you have to find a place that supports it. If you want to actually be part of the physical process of installing solar panels and be a solar installer, that's basically being an electrician. So you go to whatever training you need to become an electrician, either through an apprentice kind of program by working with somebody, or through a community college or something. Solar training programs to get people to go through a training program, get a job when they come out, are a little bit premature in Iowa right now, just because there's just not that much, the incentives aren't there to make it work, except for this kind of weird thing that's happening this year. Individuals can't take advantage of all the incentives, so what will happen is a company will come in, and they'll put solar panels on your roof for free. And they'll be able to take all the incentives, they'll own it, and they'll just sell you power. So you'll basically get power just the same way you did before, but you got solar panels on your roof, and they'll fix your power costs for the next 20 years. Say, okay, you'll pay 10% less than you do, and that's going to be fixed for the next 20 years. And then maybe at 5 or 8 years, there's an option for you to buy it out and then own it yourself and get the full, have no power bill. And so there's, in Iowa, those things don't exist yet because we don't have the incentives to make the industry happen. When you think about energy is probably the largest, it's orders of magnitude larger than the internet and telecommunications and all these other big industries, the car industry. It's just huge, huge industry. And so it's this huge super tanker that we got to stop and rethink. And if we got serious about it, Governor Branstad was here yesterday and he was talking about his goal for 200,000 jobs. We could do 200,000 jobs just getting serious about changing the way we use energy in Iowa. No problem. So it's full employment for everybody on the planet for the next 50 or 100 years if we get serious about this.